Thank you, Ben. Diane, let's bring you back on. And well, the global elite believe that they've sorted Earth out and we're all happy and well fed and watered. So they're moving on to Mars. Or have I got it wrong?
No, well, Mars and who knows, beyond Mars, who knows what's next. But yeah, so there was an obsession at Davos last week called Thriving in Orbit. And it said that by 2035, the space economy is set to reach $1.8 trillion, up from $630 billion in 2023, and averaging a growth rate of 9% a year. And so I've got a couple of the speakers that I just pulled from this panel. One is Dava Newman, who is a former NASA astronaut, aerospace engineer. She's a director of the MIT Media Lab. And we've got Zachary Bogue, who's a managing partner and co-founder of something called DCVC, which is some sort of entrepreneurial organization. So let's hear a little bit about what they had to say about space.
We're also just seeing a thawing of the IPO market as well. So I think that there will be increasing number of companies that are able to make it public, which is terrific for sort of the commercialization of space.
Thanks. And Dava, I'm going to ask you the Trump question. Do you think Trump is a romantic or a pragmatist? What impact do you think he's going to have on the space industry and some of the either financing or innovations? Do you think it's going to make any difference having Trump as president?
Well, moving in to a new administration in the U.S., again, the public-private partnerships, this is consistency of purpose is how NASA and even space with allowing how it works in the U.S. and globally. It's not just the U.S. I think it's globally. So when it comes to scientific missions and technology and more government seed funds to large funding, I hope that there will be some consistency of purpose. It's going to be chaotic for sure. New opportunities to push forward, to accelerate. Some of the investments, especially with the new, not approved, but NASA Select. I think we'll be very focused on acceleration and hopefully still public-private partnerships. So hopefully there's still partnerships, but there's going to be focus on acceleration for commercial. That's great.
Now, I don't really know what she was talking about there, but there's something to do with space and acceleration and public-private partnerships. And I think that's the most important thing, is that there's going to be a lot of money and a lot of cooperation around the world right? The whole panel is like that. And so the thing is that what I want to talk about here is how these public-private partnerships, as well as the elite organizations, are coming into play. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of, for example, the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. They do have a section on their website that is called Moon, Mars, and Beyond, which we've got here on the screen. Yep, there we go. We had a UN conference on sustainable lunar activities, which took place last year. And we can see also as well that actually today, Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, is launching more satellites for his Starlink company, which he said is meant to be for internet access around the world, in places that normally couldn't get good internet access, is what he keeps saying. But they keep launching more and more of these, and this is going to be launched from Cape Canaveral Space Station in Florida. So again, we see NASA collaborating with Elon Musk and SpaceX. We also know that King Charles has launched the Astra Carta. That's been around since 2023, where he's talking in particular in the Astra Carta about moving from the Earth to the stars, which builds on the foundation of Terra Carta, to shape a future of responsible and sustainable space exploration. So we're going to be out in space, and we're going to be following the Sustainable Development Goals all at the same time, obviously incredibly important. But we know that Trump has been talking about Mars, and just as a reminder, here's what happened during his inauguration speech last week.
We will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Elon Musk being incredibly excited about that little bit of information that he's announced. If you want to see the details of the rocket launch for SpaceX and for Starlink, that is happening later today. I'm sure there's different broadcasts you can watch if you really want to see more of these go into space. I think it's interesting to note that his ultimate goal with these satellites is to get internet access on Mars, so that, and you can read this, that you can be connected to the internet once we have Mars colonized. But not everyone is entirely as optimistic about life on Mars as Elon Musk is. Doesn't matter how much money you have. This is an article I found on a website called Futurism. It was a husband and wife couple that are scientists that wrote a book, and this was from last year, saying his plans for a city on Mars will likely end in horrifying mass death. They go into the realities of whether or not Mars can sustain human life based on radioactivity, based on what that would do to hormones and everything else about our ability to thrive as healthy people. So we'll have to see what happens next, but that's the plan according to Elon Musk and Trump.
Diane, in my mind, these people are mad. We have a world riddled with famine and suffering and poverty, which they've largely created. And rather than dealing with that, they're off onto their next thing, which is commercializing space and going to Mars. So they think it's quite incredible. But of course, the message for ordinary people is rather similar to Keir Starmer's Christmas speech, where he quickly got speaking about football, because that's what the average person really understands and puts top of the tree. So, Debbie, let's bring you back in, because somebody's been talking.
Oh, yes. Well, and finally, I thought it would be great to tie up Diane's references to the King and Ben's great reports on Davos. And this is a bit of a trigger warning. If you're having lunch, you might feel a bit sick. But David Beckham was awarded the Crystal Award at the WEF last week for his humanitarian work. And Pearl, how desperate do you have to be for a knighthood? Have a look at this.
Yeah, for good. You also participate in the King's Fund. Is that something more recent? What's your relationship?
Yeah, I
there?
always get emotional talking about anything that I do with our royal family, because
Why?
I've always been a huge royalist. I was brought up in a family, in a household that adored and loved everything that came with the royal family. So, over the years, I've done a lot with the Prince of Wales, and I've always been there whenever he's asked me to get involved with things, whether it be veterans, whether it be the London Air Ambulance Service, which we raised funds to get 2 new helicopters for London. These are the things that when I was a kid, I used to see the helicopters going over, and you knew exactly what they were going to do. They were on the way to an emergency. So to be involved in that has always been a yes for me. Whenever the Prince of Wales sends me a message and says, I need you to do this or be there, it's always a yes. So when the King asked me to be part of his foundation, I was very honoured, very privileged. I rang my mum straight away and said, you're not going to believe what I've just been asked to do.
What did she say?
My mum always just bursts into tears, in all honesty, because she's so proud of obviously what I've done throughout my career, but she's also proud, and she knows my grandparents would have been proud that I've played such an important role within the royal family and the charities that they have. So to be involved in the King's Foundation, our King is an incredible man. He's an incredible man, but he's not just been an incredible man for the last 5-10 years. He's been an incredible man for decades. The work that he has done to empower young people, the grassroots work, all of those, sustainable work, all of these things, all of those lost arts that are lost, and he's trying to bring them back. I visited recently. I visited him, and there's a couple of great pictures that I've had of me laughing with him, and best friends apparently.
Best friends. There you go, Brian. Over to you.
I think the word is besties, isn't it? They're besties, bestie friends. But he's talking about the King, who's working behind the nation's back to bring in the globalist agenda that we've just described in our news today. So utterly, utterly despicable, but it's up to people in this nation to take up the baton and challenge what's happening through every lawful, peaceful means they have, because it's up to us to make the change. There isn't going to be a knight in shining armor coming forward to solve all of the problems. And in my opinion, it's certainly not going to be Trump, but we will see. We'll leave it there. If you're a member of UK Column, do join us for Extra. We're going to have a very important Extra today, talking about the NHS and more on what's happening amongst this global system. So join us there. That's the end of today's news. Thank you to the audience, wherever you are in the world watching us. We'll be back for another UK Column news on Wednesday. Don't forget the interview going out at 1 o'clock tomorrow. That's it. Thank you all for joining me. Bye-bye.